Okay, the next part inside the MIA bylaw is actually talking about competence and due care. Okay, competence is actually a qualification or competency that you proficiency in a particular area that normally either you attain or you get it through the formal education such as tertiary level and so on, and also followed by the practical training and experience, and as well as during the working time you acquired improvement to your present knowledge through the continuum professional development. Okay, so this one can be structured and also unstructured. Unstructured means it can be hands-on through your job, and structured normally through a proper training, through a proper or formal training and workshop or seminars. Okay, so it's actually very important for the member to exercise due care, and at all time they should actually observe, okay, the professional, ethical and technical standards, and always try to improve your competency and also quality provided, quality of the services provided, because from time to time things change. Okay, so when things change, therefore we need to actually enhance our knowledge and also our competency. So there are 4 rules that MIA bylaw has already stated with regard to the competency. Okay, it is actually a must for the member to continually improve your knowledge, always update your knowledge, and also by the way of doing that, you actually improve your due care and diligence. And in terms of taking up a job, this is actually especially for public accountants. If you know that you are not capable to do it, so it's actually advised not to take the job if you are not able to perform it. Okay, at the same time, you also need to ensure that your CPE or CPD, continuous professional education or continuous professional development, is actually being complied with. At this moment, minimum 20 hours of training is actually required for a member to fulfill every year, and also to comply all the standards. Okay, so standards that are actually relevant for the profession and so on. Okay, the next one is actually talking about confidentiality. Okay, confidentiality is actually because you are dealing with the job handling clients' information. So you get access to a lot of private and confidential information. So therefore, it is actually very important to ensure that you retain the confidentiality even within a team, the same team that actually doing a job for a particular company. Okay, so talking about a disclosure of the information, confidential information about the client. Of course, normally it is not allowed for you to disclose any confidential information, and also not to use any particular information for the personal gain or advantage of the third party. Okay, so but there are cases whereby you are allowed to disclose without the consent of the client, as in the case normally when it is actually required by the law or the court orders has actually been required for you to disclose. Okay, so in that case, it is on the basis of for you to discharge your duty and also to protect the interests of other members. Okay, because there might be the cases whereby public accounting firm is actually being sued for action of negligence, okay, or for criminal offense or whatsoever. Okay, normally this would happen during the fraudulent in financial reporting. Okay, the next is actually talking about advertising, marketing and promotion. So in general, public accounting firm can do advertising and promotion. However, the announcement should not be too excessive. Okay, should not be too prominent, and you cannot actually claim that you are the best in the market. Okay, or you are the best in providing this and so on. Okay, so it's a wrong thing for you to claim that you are the best. So, however, for the publicity also or announcement, is normally for the purpose of to disclose with regard to the job vacancy, and also for you to promote, okay, your kind of services that provided by you. So that's why sometimes if you notice, they will still issue a brochure with regard to any services provided by them, but they cannot claim that they actually in the best or superior in a particular area and so on. So cannot be too much or too exaggerate. Okay, talking about compensation, because this also might impair independence, can be the threats. So what should be done is actually it should be reflective of the skill, the knowledge, the time, and also the risk exposure that you be exposed to, when you take a particular job. So it's a fair reflection of work done. And normally, MIA come up with a recommendation basis how much the fee would be. So it's just a guide. But again, it also depends on the nature of the business, uh, transactions, and so on. And normally, fee cannot be charged on a percentage basis or contingency basis, or cannot be too low, because sometimes you are competing, so you promote a very low audit fee. Okay, so what happen is that you might actually, because to ensure that the cost that incurred in order to do the job might be more than what the fee is charging, so because of that you cut down the work that you actually want to perform and so on. So that's why the fee cannot be too low. And then referral fee or commissions is also prohibited. Okay, so for instance, uh, you are audit firm A, okay, and then there is a client come to you and you notice that you cannot do because you have perhaps not have adequate resources, or maybe your staff is not that competent in the area that required for the services. So you pass on to audit firm B. Okay, so for that matter, audit firm B pay you commission or pay you referral fee. This one is actually prohibited, cannot do as such. Okay, change in professional appointment. Okay, so this one is actually can happen. Uh, Sometimes you are as an audit firm, you might be terminated, or you choose not to continue. Okay, you might be terminated by the client, or you choose not to continue with the existing client. So you can do that. All right. So what will happen is that if you are the new auditor that being proposed by the client, okay, a client requests you to be their new auditor. So normally you would actually request a permission to communicate with the previous auditor. Okay, so normally it should be allowed for you to communicate with the previous auditor in order to get some information about the client, in order to get to know what are the reasons why they are being terminated or why they are being stopped and so on. But if let's say when you request, clients said that you are not allowed to, they refused to allow you to communicate to the previous auditor. So in this case, normally the best advice is not to continue with the appointment. Okay. And then, so what will happen is that normally when we receive the permission, normally we can actually write a letter to the previous editor or auditor and to ask, okay, is there any professional reason that the appointment should not be taken? Okay, should not be taken up. So it's more on the formal basis when we ask the reason for the new appointment, okay, to the previous auditor. So as an existing auditor or the previous auditor, when you receive the request, okay, you can actually say what are the professional reason if there are any, and then if there are not, still you reply to the request, okay, to the request of the newly appointed auditor, stated there is no professional reason, okay, or means there is no particular reason, okay, why they should not take the new appointment. And normally if there are a particular reason and you want to disclose, so normally you as an existing auditor, you need to request from the client to request to disclose, okay, the facts or the reason why actually you you did not continue, or do you discontinue with the previous job of that particular client. Okay, so again, permission from client is actually on both sides is actually required. Okay, these are some of the unacceptable acts that accounting professional accountant should not do. Okay, discrimination or harassment, and then negligence. Okay, so negligence, duty of negligence, because negligence is not only on the auditor side but is also on the accountant side. And then also requirement in terms of the regulations, in terms of the regulatory frameworks and so on. So it is actually should be followed. Okay. And then talking about access to the information, cannot simply disclose any confidential information with regard to any particular business activity, employment, employer and so on. At the same time, you also cannot commit into false or misleading or deceptive acts, okay, in promoting or marketing professional services. That means when you promote your professional services, you're actually promoting the services that you are actually capable to deliver. Okay, and then normally as a member, you carry the title of Chartered Accountant. So when you are a certified or Chartered Accountant, you actually must use that credential in a proper way. Okay, that means because it would actually have an impact on the reputation of the profession just because of you if you do anything wrong in the profession. Okay, normally if there are any disciplinary actions undertaken by the members in the professional, by any professional body, okay, so normally there is a disciplinary body in the committee and also committee in the professional body. So normally if you commit any disciplinary actions, okay, your case will be carried to the disciplinary committee for the discussion, and normally the decision would be either your membership will be suspended, okay, that means for the time being with the suspension you actually cannot provide services to the public, okay, to the society. If let's say you are licensed and your license also will be suspended, therefore that means you are not allowed to sign any particular accounts for the client. And if the case is very serious, okay, and it's very bad, so it might actually end up that your membership will be terminated, okay, or maybe your license also will be revoked. So if let's say you want to get to continue, that means you have to reapply back your new qualification, okay, and then also to apply back your license and so on. But again, in the first place, the reputational has been damaged, okay. So these are some of so there are actually cases happen, though it's not that many, but they are, okay, where you have the bogus accountant in practice, all right, you don't have license terminated or expired, you did not renew, because nowadays to renew the audit license, okay, there are some requirements that they need to fulfill, because now we try to strengthen the practices to ensure that the quality of the practices is actually at certain level. Of course, at the good, we expected the good practices, okay, so that's why a lots of review and also monitoring is actually being done, okay, by MIA itself, all right. Okay, moving on, this is actually talking about professional judgment and skepticism. Okay, so being an accountant, we involve with a lot of judgment in our audit process, in starting from planning, during the fieldwork, during reporting, and of course towards the end, we actually making a judgment to make what should be the opinion, okay, about a particular financial statement. So that's why what are the do's and the don'ts for the auditors in order to comply with the professional judgment and skepticism. Okay, when we audit financial statement. Okay, that means the objective of financial reporting is actually to ensure that the financial statement is true and fair. Okay, true and fair. And then the financial reporting also comply to the requirement of the accounting standard, which is talking about measurement. That means the valuation inside the financial statement is true and fair. Okay, and then the recognition is also properly being done, all right, that means in terms of the classification as asset, liability, and so on, and also in terms of how you present, okay, are you according to the presentation format that required, and then disclosure, what are the information that you disclose, inside the notes to the accounts and also financial statement. And then at the same time, assumptions also must still be complied, because as a business entity, we need to ensure that the going concern is actually being assessed to ensure the survivability of the company, because if it is not, then it should be reflected properly in the measurement and also presentation and disclosure. Okay, at the same time, business always practice accrual basis. All right, so for that matter, we have to ensure that all the disclosure for the accrual things have been included for the respective periods. Okay, of course, for the purpose of the audit, okay, we don't actually, because we provide reasonable assurance. Okay, we provide reasonable assurance because we don't assess like everything in the whole operation. Therefore, we do have some restriction whereby the materiality is actually a benchmark that normally auditor use in order to assess or to perform our work. In fact, when we make judgment also, always use the level of materiality in setting the benchmark for the decision making. Okay, and then at the same time, we're also talking about the qualitative characteristic of the financial reporting, which is we are talking about usefulness of the financial reporting, such as when we follow respective financial reporting standard, we always want to ensure that the comparability from one company to another company. And then we're also talking about verifiability, timeliness. Timeliness, that means we're talking about the information is actually timely information, not an outdated information. And normally the terms, the concept of statement that being used should be the one that easily can be understood by any layman party, whoever that particular read the financial reporting. And also very important, another characteristic that must be complied with will be the relevance of the financial information, okay, and then faithful representation of the financial statement. That means reflect the true picture of the company. So when talking about financial reporting and professional judgment, okay, we involve with a lot of judgment when we want to do financial reporting. For instance, like in terms of measurement or valuation, all right, we do have acquisition, historical cost, okay, or sometimes we do have also fair value. We also have fair value. So in terms of historical cost, perhaps it is actually straightforward because it is based on acquisition price. However, that means clear cut there is an invoice for you to refer to. But when we're talking about fair value, it is actually market based. So it's always based on estimation, and this is where the judgment comes in. And then if you notice in the financial reporting standards, a lot of measurement nowadays is talking about fair value. Okay, the same thing with the current cost or replacement cost. This is also involved judgment. Okay, and then when you compare the current value and the historical value, okay, so this would be the impairment that happened. All right, so how will you record the impairment? Because at the end of the day, all this will be reflected on the financial statement. Okay, in terms of the recognition also involve a lot of judgment. For instance, you incur an expense, okay, you incur for the research and development, or perhaps you redesign, okay, your office whatsoever. So here there will be a judgment, all right. Should we recognize that expenses as an expenses, or should we recognize that as an asset? Because it would have different impact. If you're talking about expenses, therefore it might have immediate impact on your bottom line. That means it will further reduce your profit for the year. But if you recognize that as an asset, it will actually increase your net worth of the company, because it will increase your assets. Okay, so it has a different impact to your financial statement, especially if you were to go to apply for the loan and so on. Right, so that is where the manipulation is tend to happen, and that is where judgment is actually very important before a decision about the recognition of the item in the financial statement is actually being done. So, talking about professional judgment, all right. So these are normally a process of reaching out to a decision. So when we're talking about making decision, it is actually uh, influenced by the factors such as your job training, okay, your knowledge, all right, your leadership style, and also the way of how your thinking process or your cognitive process is actually working. Okay, your cognitive style, are you a fast thinker, are you a slow thinker, that looking at all aspects and so on. All right, at the same time, individual cultural values also would still play an influence when we make judgments. So a lot of factors actually influence our judgment, but there are also constraints to our judgment, whereby when we have to make decision in the time constraint, okay, or we have limited capacity. So what would happen? Okay, would your judgment be biased? Because sometimes you might have certain interest in that particular decision. All right, so these are some of the threats to for an auditor or for an accountant to make a proper judgment, okay, in the daily operations. So that's why, apart from judgment, as an auditor, we also have to apply a skepticism, okay, in our judgment. That means an attitude that includes a questioning mind and critical assessment of audit evidence. That means when you are being told something, when we are given something, you always like critically evaluate. Okay, critically evaluate and question, all right, whatever information given to you, is it true, is it fair, is it adequate, okay, is it accurate, and so on. So there will always be some skepticism applied, okay, that means we are not actually accepting uh, whatever management representations at the face value. Okay, we don't straight away believe what is actually being told, but we normally try to analyze and evaluate, okay, whatever that being given or being told to us as an auditor. So we always have to like double check, okay, whether whatever evidence, whatever information being given to us is actually accurate, complete, and so on. Okay, so normally skepticism apply in the planning, especially when we do a risk assessment. Okay, in the field work is also very important when we assess and evaluate evidence. Okay, when we assess and evaluate